My friends, we have been getting to the bottom of every popular mixing technique, reference some of the greatest wrestlers in the world, and are going into the biggest deep dive of them yet. And I got 2 words for you. Parallel compression. Parallel compression, also known as New York compression, is a dynamic range compression technique used in sound recording and mixing. It was introduced in 1965, and the term was coined by Bob Katz. Or was it?
I did not invent the term. I have a suspicion who may have invented it, but I have to remember his name.
I think we're going to have to dive even deeper than we thought. Let's explore the New York compression. Detective Deep Dive is on the case. The year is 1965, and Dolby Laboratories invented the first parallel bus. No, I don't mean the A train going to Manhattan. I mean the audio bus in the Dolby A circuitry, or whatever. One bus was left normal, while the other had heavy-handed compression, so the two could be mixed in a flexible ratio. Sound familiar? This would go on to be the technique you all know and love, parallel compression. Around this time, iconic consoles such as Neve, SSL, and API were in the rat's race to get these behemoth desks built to fill the orders for studios from England to LA, and you guessed it, New York. Even though parallel compression was invented in 1965, it didn't see the light of day until 1969, and no one even heard about it until almost a decade later. Well, it turns out there was one person that had the scoop on this technique, and his name was Lawrence Horn. He worked for Motown and used a variation of parallel compression called exciter compression. He would duplicate a signal, minimally EQ one with reverb, and on the other slam the compression while adding a high-end shelf. This is the sound you heard on artists like The Temptations, Dionne Warwick, and famous singles like My Girl. You guys know what I'm talking about, all that good love-making stuff. He might have actually shared this secret with the world had he not gone to jail for hiring someone to whack his ex-wife. I guess parallel compression was really a hit, man. Now, let's hop in our spaceship and go almost a decade into the future. The year is 1977, and no, I'm not changing my clothes again. Want to fight about it? Didn't think so. Mike Bevel publishes an article about parallel compression in Studio Sound magazine. Word started getting around about the technique, but you still had to be in the know to understand. It was so hard to get information out about audio recording that they published Bevel's article again a decade later. You kids don't know how good you got it with the Joey Sturgis Tones Forum and Nail the Mix, a plug-in drops, or a technique. You hear about it in seconds. Back in my day, we had to wait for the word to get around. Later on in the 90s, mixers like Tony Maserati and Michael Brower were using this technique to the extreme. It became so popular in New York. That's mainly because engineers were using it to push instrumentals, specifically drums, to be very in your face, while Motown would have the vocals as the main point, while the instrumentals would blend into the background. The funny part about this is they were both using parallel compression. Motown just happened to be using it on vocals, while New Yorkers were using it on the instruments. So there you guys have it. But wait, what about Grammy-winning and best-selling audiobook author Bob Katz? I had to reach out to him and see his take on all this confusion. It turns out, regardless of what the internet says, he did not coin the term parallel compression, and definitely not New York compression, but he popularized parallel compression. And without further ado, I present Bob Katz to give you a breakdown on parallel compression.
I did not invent the term. I have a suspicion who may have invented it, but I have to remember his name. He's a New Zealander. I'll have to look him up again. It's been a while since we've been in touch. But he came up with a whole set of formulas and an Excel spreadsheet that calculated what the end ratio would be, and so on. So we could call him the father of the term. But I use it. I use the term, and I wrote, shall we say, a best-selling book that's in its 3rd edition, bestseller in the audio field, and it's called Mastering Audio. In my book, I describe 2 different styles of parallel compression. One of them I call the transparent style, and the other one I call more like tonalization and going for attitude. And each one requires a different kind of attack time and release time and threshold.
Thank you so much for joining us, Bob. It's really crazy digging into the history of some of this stuff. My mom wasn't even born when this technique was made. And speaking of my mom, she keeps telling me to get a real job. So I'll be happy to let you know, Mom. I made detective. If I inspired you to write something, hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe. You only gotta do it one time. And tap that bell for notifications so when a video drops, you know the location. Until next time, I'm out of here. Mic drop. Except as engineers, we know I wouldn't do that because it would get really expensive, especially in Manhattan. Later.